Hey everyone! Tonight we're crawling into the icy wind-burned belly of a Mongol winter, where your breath turns to frost in your nose, your eyelids freeze mid-blink, and survival means knowing which yak parts to burn and which ones to eat. Picture this. You wake up in the pitch black, rolled inside a felt blanket that smells like old cheese and wet sheep. Outside, it's -30 on a good day. Your eyelashes are stuck together, your feet are numb, and someone's goat is standing on your chest. Welcome to winter on the steppe. You probably won't survive this dot, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. And while you're at it, drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Always fun to see who else is drifting off at 3 a.m. Now, turn down the lights, turn on the fan to some soothing music, and let's get going. Tonight, you arrive with your thin little boots and your city-trained optimism, stepping off a borrowed pony that looks like it resents you. The sky is an endless slab of iron gray, the kind of color that drains warmth straight from your soul. The land around you is flat, treeless, and crunches underfoot like sugar glass. 1,000 years ago, people here survived not by fighting nature, but by making it their accomplice. You can't even find the front door of a yurt. A voice calls out. You turn. It's a woman in layers so thick she resembles a walking pile of rugs. She looks at your hands bare, red, trembling, and laughs. She shoves a pair of mittens at you, made from something furry and probably recently dead. You don't ask questions. You just take them. Inside the camp, everything looks temporary, but nothing is. The round felt yurts are lashed tight against the wind, low to the ground like sleeping animals. Fires crackle inside, but the smoke snakes out through the hole at the top, carrying with it the smell of fat, ash, and old soup. Kids run barefoot in the snow. Somewhere, someone is butchering a sheep. You spot an older man stirring something in a pot with a sword. It's not stew. It's soap. You hope that your host pulls back the flap of a yurt. You duck in, and the world changes. The wind disappears. A heat inside punches you in the face like an angry grandma. There's a fire pit in the center, and rugs on every surface. A saddle doubles as a pillow. Everyone stares at you, the outsider, and you realize you're standing in someone's living room, kitchen, and bedroom all at once. Also, maybe their stable. There's a goat sleeping in the corner with its eyes open. You sit. Someone hands you a bowl of tea. It's salty, smells vaguely like a barn, and might contain butter. You drink it anyway. That's when you notice they're all watching you. Not with hostility, but with the kind of curiosity reserved for someone clearly doomed. You're the winter entertainment. One of them starts telling a story low, slow, rhythmic. It's about a man from generations ago who survived the coldest winter by sleeping inside a horse carcass and eating his boots. Everyone nods as if this is totally normal. You nod too, trying not to look horrified. But this is more than a bedtime story. It's instruction. These tailies carry real tips, like always warm your boots near the fire before putting them on. Never eat snow to hydrate. And if your eyelids freeze shut, don't pull. Just wait. The children begin playing a game in the corner, using sheep ankle bones as dice. They laugh, but it sounds like coughing. A baby pees into a corner bucket, unfazed by the cold. Someone passes you a lump of food wrapped in cloth. You bite it. It's dried mutton tougher than beef jerky and vaguely foot-flavored. Still, you chew. You need the fat. Out here, fat is the difference between waking up alive or as an ice sculpture. You try to ask how long winters usually last. Someone chuckles. The answer doesn't matter. They last as long as they want to. Historians still debate whether the Mongols were uniquely adapted to winter or if they simply endured it with style. Either way, you're here now, and every second outside that warm little yurt feels like a gare. Your fingers tingle, your breath fogs, and somewhere beyond the camp, a wolf howls. Welcome to the steppe. The fire's warm, but survival? That's just beginning. You don't sleep that first night. Not really. The floor is harder than expected layers of rugs over packed earth, and someone's elbow is perpetually in your ribs. There's a baby snoring like a drunk uncle beside you, and the yurt creaks with every gust of wind like an old ship stuck. On land, the fire dies slowly, hissing under a pan of simmering mutton fat, and in the silence, you finally hear it. The cold. Not just feel it, hear it. A kind of crackling, whispering presence just outside the felt walls, like winter itself is pacing in circles, waiting for someone to make a mistake. Morning comes in shades of gray, and you emerge from your blanket cocoon like a regretful burrito. Outside, the camp is already alive. Fires smoke lazily, kids chase chickens on ice, and your breath instantly escapes your lungs like it has better places to be. Today, you're assigned a task, tending the goats and fetching dung. That's right, you're on dung duty. Because out here, survival doesn't start with swords or strategy. It starts with poop. The gare the yurt you slept in depends on it. Its walls are made of wooden lattice wrapped in thick layers of sheep's wool felt, held tight by rope and prayer. The heat? That comes from burning dried dung. No trees here, no forests. Just the blessed byproduct of livestock. You scoop it into a woven basket with a carved bone paddle. It's frozen solid, light, and surprisingly odorless, kind of like winter's currency. You wonder if you'll ever look at poop the same way again. You bring your load back like a proud pizza. Delivery guy. Inside, the dung goes directly into the fire pit, and the flames roar back to life. Warmth floods the space instantly, and everyone nods approvingly, as if you just passed the first unspoken test. Contribute or freeze. You sit near the fire, and someone hands you a goatskin sack of arid fermented Marais milk. You sip it. It's cold, fizzy, sour, and definitely alcoholic. Your eyes water. Your insides complain. You drink more. That's another rule here. Accept what's offered. Refusing food or drink is like telling someone their ancestors were ugly. And you don't survive winters with enemies. Later, you help milk the goats. Not romantic, not cute. They kick, they fart. One of them sneezes on you. The milk is warm, which feels weird. It steams in the cold, and you almost want to bathe in it. But it's precious turned into cheese. Yogurt, and sometimes left outside to freeze dry into crumbling blocks that last months. Mongol food is built for efficiency. Fat is treasure, protein is life, and carbs are rare dreams whispered by travelers. Even the tea is made with butter. And salt to keep you going, not comfort you. Historians still debate whether the Mongol diet was harsh necessity or culinary genius. But one thing's certain. Nothing goes to waste. Not even the blood. Yes, sometimes they drink it, straight from a vein, especially during long rides. You try not to think about it. As evening falls, you help repair a cracked felt panel on the gare. It's stiff from snow, the wool matted and thick like old dreadlocks. You sew with sinew, your fingers clumsy and stiff, but someone pats your shoulder. Encouragement, maybe, or just amusement. Either way, you'll take it. The wind picks up. Again, slicing sideways across the steppe. A yurt's huddle close like mushrooms in the frost. You spot smoke curling from a dozen tops, and realize every single one of those fires came from someone like you, scooping dung, feeding the flame. That's the real trick to surviving out here. Not heroics, not magic, just ritual, repetition, poop in the basket, fire in the hearth, drink what you're given, don't die. Someone calls you inside for dinner. Mutton stew again. A bony piece floats in the broth, like a tiny Viking ship. It's oily, hot, and full of gristle, but you eat. You need the calories. Your hands are shaking again. Not from fear, just from the cold. Later, they pass around more arag. You take a deeper drink this time. It still tastes like disappointment in yogurt, but now it's oddly comforting. Like a shared headache. The stars come out in clusters, sharp and endless. The sky a frozen dome. You're exhausted, numb, full, and maybe a little drunk. You lie down on your patch of rug, pull the felt over your face, and let the fire's heat slowly lull you away from your aching feet and goat-scented clothes. You're still cold, but less than before. That counts as progress. The lice come on. Day 3. Maybe day 2, but you are too tired to notice. At first, it's just an itch at the base of your neck, easy to ignore. Then it's behind your ears, in your eyebrows, inside your shirt collar. You scratch discreetly, like you're just adjusting layers, but the old woman across the fire sees you and grins with the satisfaction of someone who's seen your fate unfold countless times. She mutters something that probably translates to, "Welcome to the club," and hands you a piece of what looks like oily thread. It's not for sewing. It's for delousing. You drag it across your scalp like floss, trying not to look horrified at what it catches. Everyone's got lice. The trick is not letting them win. Bathing isn't really an option, not when the water source is half a mile away, under a foot of ice, and your towel might freeze before your skin dries. Laundry? That's a seasonal event. The camp has a system, and it's not what you'd call modern. You change underlayers maybe once a week, if you're lucky. Wool absorbs the worst of the smell, which is saying something, because the smell is committed. Your outerwear, a heavy deal coat lined with fur, is basically your second skin now. It smells like fire, sweat, goat, and something vaguely medicinal. You're not sure if that's comforting or a cry for help. At night, when everyone's packed into the gare like sardines, the communal musk becomes part of the experience. You start to recognize people by scent alone. Oddly, this is seen as a good thing. Washing clothes in winter involves first scraping off any frozen excretions. Yes, that happens. Then soaking the garments in heated water spiked with ashes or fermented milk, then beating them against rocks, then leaving them to freeze dry upright like historical mannequins. You join in on laundry day, mostly to prove you're still pulling your weight. You're handed a tunic so stiff it could probably fight on its own. You help break the ice from the water basin, heat it with rocks from the fire, and try not to think too hard about what's floating in it. There's a kind of bonding in the absurdity. You and 2 teenage boys start a quiet competition to see whose socks stand the tallest after freeze drying. Yours win, and one of them bows to it like it's a champion. You don't feel clean, but you feel less disgusting, which is the new gold standard. Meanwhile, the lice continue their campaign. You ask someone how they dealt with it in the past. They shrug and mention fire. Not metaphorically, literally. Some people used to hold the edge of a burning stick near their scalp to scare the lice off. Others wore herbs under their hats or mixed ashes with sheep fat to create an ointment that either suffocated the bugs or you. Historians still debate how effective these remedies were, but judging by the resigned looks around the fire, none were particularly beloved. One man tells a story about his grandfather, who shaved his head every winter and wore a fur hat lined with nettles. You ask if it worked. He just shrugs again. Mongol winter life doesn't promise perfection, just survival. You scratch, you drink your tea, you stoke the dung fire, and you learn to live with a certain level of shared discomfort. Eventually, you find a rhythm. You scratch less, or maybe just care less. The body adapts, or gives up. Hard to say. One night, While combing your hair with a carved bone pick, you catch a girl watching you. She giggles and mimics your scratchy head flailing. The whole yurt laughs. Someone tosses you a handful of dried juniper. You're told to rub it into your scalp. It smells sharp, smoky, and vaguely hopeful. The old woman winks. You do as you're told. That night, you sleep a little deeper. The lice are still there, probably planning their next move. But you've got juniper, warmth, and a yurt full of people who've all itched before you. You're not alone in this war. And that, somehow, makes it a little easier. You wake up in the middle of the night to a sound that doesn't belong a wet, slapping squelch, followed by a low, satisfied sigh. For a moment, you think someone's giving birth in the yurt. Then you realize it's just a man gnawing on a hunk of frozen mutton like it's midnight popcorn. His beard is glistening with fat, and his eyes meet yours like, what? Hungry? That's when it hits you again. How survival out here hinges not on fire or friendship, but on fat. Not a little fat. Not a polite drizzle of olive oil. Weird, talking marrow-sucking, grease-slick, cholesterol-defying fat. Because in a Mongol winter, fat is heat. It's fuel. It's the only blanket your organs get. Breakfast is cold dumplings stuffed with lamb and onions, steamed the night before, and now congealed into bite-sized thermal batteries. They're chewy, salty, and stick to your ribs like guilt. Someone drops a chunk of horse sausage into your tea. You blink. They nod. Apparently, it's a thing. You sip carefully. It's meaty. Strangely comforting. You stop asking questions. Later, you help prepare dinner. It's a stew today, if you define stew as everything edible in one pot. Hooves, bones, gristle, and something that might have once been a kidney all bubble. In a frothy broth, you help skim the fat into a separate bowl. That's the prized stuff, the good stuff. Fat gets smeared on lips like balm, rubbed on cracked knuckles, even used to seal wounds. A toddler waddles by chewing on a lump of sheep. Fat like it's a teething toy. You gag. No one else does. Mongol food isn't about pleasure. It's about staying alive until spring. If it tastes decent, that's a bonus. If it doesn't kill you, that's dinner. They dry meat in strips, boil bones for marrow, ferment milk into everything from yogurt to something suspiciously explosive. You're handed a bowl of Shimin Arki milk vodka. It tastes like regret and rubbing alcohol. Your throat burns. Your body warms. You have a second sip. Historians still debate how the Mongols managed to maintain such high energy and endurance on a seemingly limited diet. But when you watch a man sprint up a hill in a blizzard, wearing nothing but boots and determination, you realize calories here are weapons. You learn to hoard them, to honor them. You stop pushing aside the fatty bits and start asking for them. And one day, without realizing it, you actually crave it, the oily sheen on soup, the chew of tendon, the way dried meat softens against your teeth like it's whispering secrets of ancient winters. There's a story told by the fire that night about a legendary warrior who once survived a snowstorm by slow roasting a marmot over a saddle. He called it battle jerky. You laugh. Then you realize no one else is joking. The food may be strange, but it's intimate. Every meal is a communal act, a moment of shared survival. You eat elbow to elbow, slurping from the same pot, chewing in sync, passing around a single cloth to wipe mouths. Table manners are different here. If you burp, it's a compliment. If you refuse food, you might as well declare war. One night, you accidentally finish the last dumpling. Silence falls. You panic. Then someone bursts out laughing and tosses you another. It's a test. Everything here is. You passed. Again. Still, your body protests. Your gut aches from the grease. Your tongue longs for a vegetable, a fruit, anything not preserved in salt and stubbornness. But you understand now, this is the diet of conquest, of motion, of people who rode into empires on an empty stomach and a full wineskin. You toast the next bowl of broth to their stomachs and to yours. It's adapting, slowly, unwillingly, but surely. By the time you lie down, full of fat and fire, you're warmer than you've ever been. Your skin is greasy, your breath smells like mutton, and your dreams are thick with steam. You're surviving, one meal at a time, that you are not ready for the river. No one is, not really. Fetching water in the Mongol winter sounds simple in theory. Walk to the stream, cut through the ice, collect the water, bring it back. But that's like saying brain surgery is just a bit of slicing. The cold doesn't just bite here, it devours. It chews through layers of wool like you're wrapped in wishful thinking. The water source is half a mile away, down a slope glazed in. Frozen wind. You step outside, holding a pair of wooden buckets on a shoulder pole, like some tragic peasant in an oil painting. The air is so cold, your nostrils snap shut. Your eyelashes stick together, and your breath turns into tiny crystals that dust your scarf like cursed glitter. You slip immediately. Your knees catch you. Barely. Someone laughs behind you. Encouragingly. Probably. You trudge through the powdery snow, every step a negotiation with the earth. The path is narrow, lined with goat, tracks and frozen dung pebbles. You try not to look at your fingers. You try not to think about them at all. The cold has a way of stealing sensation first, and then, if you're not careful, stealing the parts themselves. When you finally reach the stream, it's sleeping beneath a thick shell of ice. The top is glassy, smooth, and utterly indifferent to your suffering. You're handed an axe with a handle wrapped in goat hide. You chop. The noise echoes like gunshots. The rhythm is slow. It's not about strength. It's about persistence. Chunks of ice scatter like shattered windows. The water underneath is black, alive, moving. It steams gently, as if surprised to see daylight. You kneel, dip your bucket, and flinch as the cold soaks through your gloves. It burns, then numbs, then disappears. You've got maybe 5 minutes before your hands stop cooperating. On your way back, your balance is worse. Your buckets swing. You try to walk without spilling. Your shoulders ache. The wind returns like it's been waiting, curling into your coat, licking your neck. You stumble again, this time face first. Into snow. A goat watches you from a distance, like it's judging your entire bloodline. When you return, the yurt is warmer than heaven. Your buckets are half full. Your pride is half gone. You thaw slowly by the fire, holding your hands over the flame until they sting with returning life. Someone hands you a cup of broth. You sip. It helps. You live. Later, you hear the story of a boy who once went to fetch water and never came back. They say he fell through thin ice, didn't drown, just couldn't crawl back out fast enough. The cold took him. They found him days later, curled in a silent prayer. Some say his ghost still watches over the stream. Others say he was foolish. Most say nothing, because everyone here knows water isn't a chore. It's a gamble. Historians still debate how the Mongols managed to thrive in such a brutal environment, without more fatalities. Maybe it was luck. Maybe it was ruthless pragmatism. Maybe it was just that they had no other choice. You're learning that too. No one fetches water alone anymore. Not since the boy. From then on, someone always walks with you, not to help, just to bring your buckets back in case you don't. There's no ceremony, no drama, just quiet insurance. The next day, when it's your turn again, a young girl walks beside you. She says nothing, just walks, cuts the ice, waits. You both drink a handful from the stream like it's holy. Then you walk back. She hands you a piece of dried cheese. You chew in silence. You don't fall this time. That night, you sleep a little harder. Maybe it's the fatigue. Maybe it's the quiet companionship of shared survival. Or maybe it's just knowing that someone will walk with you tomorrow, too. You've now survived long enough to realize survival isn't just about warmth or food. It's about not offending the wrong person over stew. You're seated cross-legged in the yurt one evening, picking through what appears to be the third meal today, featuring the same chunk of reboiled goat spine, when someone says something. Everyone laughs. You smile politely, but it turns out they weren't joking. You just accidentally laughed at a story about someone's cousin dying in an avalanche of frozen horse dung. The room goes quiet. The host frowns. You are suddenly very aware of how loud you chew. Social codes in a Mongol winter camp are invisible until you trip over them, like ice hidden under soft snow. It's not that people are cold there. They're just watchful. Politeness is practical. Harmony means survival. If you're the kind of person who borrows a blanket without asking or speaks during a shaman's nap, you'll find yourself eating outside, and that's not a metaphor. Yurt gossip, it turns out, is both the social glue and the unofficial. Judicial system. You burp too loudly, someone tells their neighbor. You snore like a wounded horse, someone else nods. The news travels faster than the wind, and suddenly, people are handing you extra blankets and herbal teas with the pointed tenderness of someone trying to fix you without asking questions. You overhear a story about a man who once insulted a stew by adding salt before tasting it. The cook was his mother-in-law. He slept in the goat pen for 3 nights. No one questioned it. That's just how things are. Etiquette here is ancient. Unspoken, but ironclad. Never step over someone's saddle. Don't point your feet at the hearth. Never pour out a drink offered to you, even if it smells like fermented regret. The yurt itself follows sacred geometry. The hearth is the heart. The right side is for men and tools. The left side is for women and food. The back, reserved for honored guests and ancestral spirits, is the only place you're still slightly afraid to sit. Historians still debate how much of this structure was religious versus social, but inside the circular walls, the hierarchy is spatial, spiritual, and deeply felt. One afternoon, you pass a bowl of tea the wrong way left hand instead of both hands. It's corrected instantly with a quiet glance. Another night, you speak while someone older is still talking. The correction isn't harsh. It's worse. They simply stop listening. Silence here is the scariest punishment. The most unforgivable mistake, though, disrespecting the fire. You nearly kick a log too close to the flames while adjusting your seat. A hand stops you mid-motion. Eyes narrow. The fire isn't just warmth, it's alive, ancestral. A direct line to spirit and survival. To offend it is to insult everyone. Whoever made it through a winter. You bow your head and apologize to the fire. Aloud. No one laughs. They nod. You're learning. Slowly. One old woman begins to trust you. She teaches you how to fold a blanket properly, how to prepare tea with dried nettle and goat milk, and how to really listen to stories without interrupting. One night, she tells you about a woman from her childhood who once kept an entire yurt warm using only animal fat and sheer willpower. They say she scared off a wolf by spitting butter in its eye. You laugh, carefully this time. The old woman cackles. Approval. It feels like passing a final exam without knowing you are being tested. There's a strange comfort in these rules. They hold you up like a net you didn't know you were falling into. And the gossip? It turns out it works both ways. Someone tells a tale about how you didn't complain when your water froze solid in your boots. Someone else mentions how you shared your dried cheese with a crying child. You're becoming a part of the yurt rhythm. Slowly, reluctantly, but honestly. That night, when you sit near the fire, no one moves away. Someone passes you the best piece of meat. You chew it quietly, gratefully. And when the old woman finishes her story, you don't say a word. You just nod. The fire crackles in approval. The first time you hear the wolves, you think it's just the wind until the sound curves, sharp and deliberate, like a knife scraping along the edge of your spine. It's not close, but it's not far either. You freeze mid-step, one hand on. A bucket of slushy goat feed, the other halfway to your mouth, with a chunk of frozen curd. The air goes still, like the steppe itself is holding its breath. Then comes the second howl, lower, closer, threaded with hunger. Everyone in camp hears it. No one panics. That's what's most unsettling. They just move a little faster, a little quieter. The children are gathered. The doors of the yurts are checked twice. The goats are herded in tighter. You try to keep moving, but your ears are doing that thing pricking at every rustle, every crunch of snow. Suddenly, you're aware of just how alone this place is. No trees, no walls, just open, endless steppe, and whatever has decided to watch you from the dark. That night, they post extra guards. Not with guns or even spears, just men in thick coats, with long knives and sharper instincts. One of them hands you a slingshot and a small pouch of stones. You're flattered until you realize it's more for noise than defense. Wolves don't fear you, but they might dislike surprises. There's a story told in hushed tones about a winter long ago when a pack of wolves surrounded a Mongol camp for 3 nights straight. They didn't attack, just waited, pacing, watching. The herds were restless. The people were more so. Then, one morning, they were gone, but so was a child. Never a scream, never a struggle. Just silence. Some say it was punishment for disrespecting the fire. Others say the wolves were spirits testing the camp's unity. Historians still debate whether these stories are exaggeration or deeply coded warnings passed down for generations. Either way, the effect is the same. No one dares dismiss them. You sleep that night with a blade under your blanket and a goat pressed up against your legs for warmth. The howls come again. Closer, longer. One of the guards whistles. A high, trilling note. A response. Maybe a warning. Maybe a lullaby. In the morning, you find tracks. Large, deliberate. Circling the camp like drawing symbols in the snow. The goats are rattled. One refuses to eat. The elders gather. They decide to move the herd slightly east, toward a shallow rise that offers better visibility. You help. You're not fast, but you're eager. That counts. A man named Timur teaches you how to scan the horizon looking, not for the obvious, but for what's missing. A gap in the snow. A patch of stillness where there should be wind. The absence of birdsong. Wolves, he says, are patient. They don't charge. They wait. He tells you about a legendary hunter who once stared down a wolf from 10 feet away. Neither moved for hours. When the hunter blinked, the wolf vanished. That man never hunted again. Said the steppe had judged him. You ask if it's a true story. Timur shrugs. True enough. That evening, the guards light small fires at the edge of camp. Not big, just flickers. Eyes hate light, they say. You sit near the outer ring of yurts, slingshot in hand, trying not to fidget. The cold seeps through your bones like spilled ink, but you don't complain. You just watch. Hours pass. Nothing. Then movement. A dark shape flits along the edge of your vision. Your breath catches. It's gone before you can blink. Did anyone else see it? Hard to say. No one speaks. But one of the guards stands up, walks slowly to the edge of the light, and tosses a piece of raw meat into the dark. A gift, a bargain, a warning. You never know which. That night, the howls stop, but the silence that replaces them is worse. Like something finished deciding. You sleep less, but your senses sharpen. You learn to hear snow falling. You learn to measure fear by how long someone holds their breath. You begin to understand what the steppe has always known. Wolves don't just hunt flesh, they hunt weakness. And winter? Winter listens. Spring doesn't arrive with flowers here. It limps in like an injured animal, suspicious, thin, and almost apologetic. The snow doesn't melt so much as it retreats slowly, leaving behind patches of brown sludge and the smell of everything. That's been frozen too long. But this year, it doesn't come at all. Not on time. The air stays cold. The wind keeps its bite. The animals grow quiet, and the stew pot grows lighter. You notice it first when dinner starts to stretch thinner more. Broth, fewer chunks. Then someone jokes that the bones are being reused, so often they're asking for weekends off. But no one laughs too hard, because hunger has a way of tightening throats before it tightens stomachs. One morning, you wake up to whispers. A horse has been butchered, not one injured or dying. A good one, strong, young. That's when it sinks. The camp has crossed a line. But it's not panic. It's process. The animal was chosen, thanked, its blood mixed with flour to stretch the rations. Its hide already being scraped for repairs. Nothing wasted. Nothing ever wasted. You help with the butchering, not out of desire, but duty. The smell is thick, metallic, and hot against the cold air. Your hands go numb, then sting, then numb. Again, the meat is dark and dense. It'll last if dried properly. And it has to, because no one knows how long the cold will hold. That night, the stew tastes different. You try not to think about it, but you chew slower. You sip the broth like it's medicine. In some ways, it is. The elders speak less now. The stories are shorter, sharper, practical. A tale is told about the winter of 1206, when a small clan faced near extinction during a freeze, so long birds forgot to migrate. They survived by boiling saddle leather and praying to wolves. You ask if it worked. No one answers. Historians still debate whether this winter, the one you're in, is the worst in generations or just part of a forgotten cycle. But the mood shifts. Even the wind seems different, less wild, more watchful. You spend your days collecting anything burnable. You trade a pair of socks for a bowl of cheese soup. You eat it slowly, like it's the last one you'll ever have. The children stop playing. Their toys gather dust bones, feathers, stones carved into animals. Now they just sit by the fire, staring, waiting. One evening, a young boy collapses. No illness, just exhaustion. Hunger wrapped in too many layers. Of quiet, he's carried into the yurt and wrapped in furs. No one cries. Not yet. Crying wastes water. You help boil roots into tea. Bitter, black. You drink it anyway. There's talk of moving camp, seeking better grazing, warmer winds, something. But nothing moves quickly here, not when every decision costs calories. You wake up to the sound of the wind again. Only this time, it's softer, not warm, but less cruel. A crack forms in the ice near the stream, tiny but real. The goats bleat more. One gives birth. The first sign of defiance against winter. People smile. Not wide, not yet, but smile. You realize something then. Survival isn't just enduring. It's choosing, every day, not to give in. Not to slip quietly into the snow and become another cautionary tale. You've eaten things you never imagined. Slept in clothes that could walk on their own. Fought lice, wolves, and silence. And now, as the fire burns just a little brighter, you know you've made it through something unnameable, something ancient. You sit by the hearth, bowl in hand, surrounded by the same people who once looked at you like a fragile guest. Now you share their smoke, their hunger, their stories. You are one of them, not because of words, but because of the quiet you've endured together. The storm may not be over, but the worst of it, the part where you weren't sure, is past. And that might be enough. So now, as the wind outside softens and the fire within your chest burns low, let your breath slow with it. You've traveled far tonight, across frozen steppes and through hunger, cold, silence, and the strange comfort of a goat-scented blanket. Let your muscles melt into the warmth you've earned, like fat into broth. You're no longer the outsider. You've survived the howl, the hunger, the hush. Let the last echoes of that distant yurt fire wrap around you like a woolen whisper. You're safe now. There are no wolves circling, just stars above, quiet snow beneath, and the soft pulse of your own breath, steady, slow, and warm. Let sleep take you, traveler. You've earned it. End of script. Good night.